Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk to you about the world's most beautiful melodies. And today we're talking about Rachmaninoff. Yes, Rachmaninoff. And the reason is actually very interesting. There's a little backstory to this. Let me just straighten myself out here. I was running around doing the previous talk. Okay, here we go. I went to the doctor yesterday. And my doctor is just a terrific guy. He really is. He's been my doctor for 30 years. I was like one of his first ever patients. And he knows every quirk and foible of my health history, which really is kind of a pain in the ass. I'm like the king of comorbidity when we had this pandemic going on because, I've got asthma and diabetes and multiple sclerosis and coronary artery disease. I've had a heart attack. I've got 3 stents put in there. I don't give a damn. Everyone's busy signing HIPAA forms talking about privacy. I don't give a shit. I really don't. Anyone wants to know my health history? You can have it. What difference does it make? The point is, he knows me. And every so often, of course, since I'm being kept alive by the pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical military industrial complex, which I love. I just love those people. And I love their products. And I want to try all of them at one point or another. I have to get refills. And most doctors do not just give you refills. They actually make you come in for a visit at least once every few months, especially if, like me, you have some mitigating health circumstances. And so I went to get my refills, and of course his office called me up and said, "You got to come in. What are you talking about? We're not a prescription dispensary service." It's like, all right, so I'll come in. But I go in and we hang out. And the real reason he wants to see me, of course, is not because he's going to do anything for my health, which is pretty hopeless the way it is. But, and he's going to give me my prescriptions, right? It's so we can chat about music because my doctor is a pianist and he really particularly likes Chopin and Rachmaninoff. And so we chat about music and, while he thumps and pumps and pressurizes and, sticks his fingers in obscene places and all of that stuff. But the reason that this was a particularly enjoyable visit is because he says to me, "I'm watching your videos," which was news to me. I was terribly flattered. And he said, "Well, I really, it's amazing all the stuff you talk about, which I haven't heard of, but why don't you talk about Rachmaninoff? I see this series like the world's most beautiful melodies." He's like, "I like Rachmaninoff. Where do you find all of this other stuff?" And it really struck me. We always have to be careful. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing in some ways, isn't it? Because the vast majority of humanity that listens to classical music loves Rachmaninoff. I love Rachmaninoff. I really do. But, when you've heard 400 versions of the same thing over and over again, you want something different. And so we try, we go on the search for the world's greatest melodies that are not by the same 5 composers that everybody loves. But there is a reason that those composers are famous. As they say, all's not false that's taught in the public schools. As the saying goes, those people are famous because they wrote some of the world's best melodies. They are fabulous, fabulous composers, fabulous tunes. And as I've always said, there has never been, musicology has never been able to cope with the question of melody, of why one is great and why another one isn't, and what it is about one that strikes so many people, that becomes instantly popular, that's just a grabber. And my God, Rachmaninoff, who was not terribly prolific, if you go by opus numbers, he only goes up to, 40-something. The Symphonic Dances, his last major work, are opus 45. So there's not a lot, although there are opus numbers that have groups of pieces like, the piano preludes and things like that, and the Etude Tableau and that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, for somebody who wrote as little as he did, he probably has the highest percentage of great tunes of just about anybody out there. It's astonishing how many there are. And so I chose 3. I have chosen 3 of Rachmaninoff's greatest melodies to play for you, which are also the world's greatest melodies. And it really is an indefinable attribute of genius that he can come up with these amazing, amazing tunes. So the first one, well, first let me tell you the ones I'm not playing, because there are at least a couple of the ones I'm not playing. I'm not playing the Vocalese. Everybody loves the Vocalese, and of course it's been arranged 400,000 billion times. Originally, it's a it's an untexted vocal melisma for a singer to sing. The reason I haven't chosen it is because it's a purely personal thing. It reminds me way too much of the Taster's Choice commercial. Remember, times like these are made for Taster's Choice. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the Vocalies. The Taster's Choice commercial was a little bit different, but they're inextricably stuck in my brain. And so I'm not going to be doing the Taster's Choice commercial with the Vocalies. The other one is the 18th variation in the Paganini Rhapsody, which is, ya da 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 da, da 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 da, ya da 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 da. Oh, it's gorgeous. Gorgeous. And it's an amazing melodic invention because it consists of Paganini's theme inverted. It's an almost literal inversion of the theme. It's extraordinary how Rachmaninoff was able to take that tune and Rachmaninoff-size it, if that's the word. It's been Rachmaninoffiated, well, whatever. It's gorgeous and everybody knows it, but there's so many. That's the point with Rachmaninoff. The guy just churned out the tunes. And here's a typical example. This is the opening of the Adagio of the Second Symphony. And it is glorious. Here you go. All right, that was Leonard Slatkin's first recording with the St. Louis Symphony on Vox. You know, one of the things about this particular tune is that it's a throwaway. I mean, it's just a throwaway. It never comes back after what you just heard. It comes back in pieces. You hear the opening few notes, da, 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 da. But each time it's different. That wonderful, amazing, glorious opening melody you only hear once at the very beginning. And it's not even the main theme of the movement. The main theme of the movement is the tune for clarinet that comes right after this. But people know this tune. They know it because it became Eric Carmen's popular song, and I'm never gonna love again, that thing. That's how we know it. But wow, what a great tune. And what kind of a composer is it who has such a melodic gift that he can afford to simply throw away a tune of that quality, of that memorability, and never return to it? Of course, one of the aspects of the musical genius that Rachmaninoff was is that every time it comes back in a bit, you want to hear it. You really want to hear it. And this is a very long movement. It's like 15 minutes long if you play it without cuts. And you keep hearing bits of that tune. And you keep wanting to hear it more because you listen for the next time it's going to come back. It's one of the ways he sustains the length of the movement and the momentum of a movement, which is otherwise very slow and frankly kind of patchily constructed from a strictly formal point of view. It stops, it starts, but there's that tune that he keeps teasing you with. And musicology has never figured out how to deal with teasing, with tunes that tease you, tunes that force you to wait until you know it's going to come back, but then it doesn't. Then you have to wait for the next time. And that's such a marvelous sort of capsule description of the entire romantic aesthetic, this constant yearning for a lost beauty that you just can't quite recapture. Oh my God, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And this is the iconic example of how that works in a romantic context and how musical form sometimes just can't be reduced to dry academic descriptions of harmonic process or even, thematic repetition, because there's no way to describe, you can describe, but to define in technical terms what Rachmaninoff does with that tune and how he knows just when to bring back what bits of it throughout the movement as little pillars that urge you on. Oh, I think it's fabulous. It's fabulous, but frustrating. It's a romantic, anticlimax in a sense, but it's marvelous. Okay, that's that. Now the other big tune, and this one's really for you, John, because we talked about it, is of course Full Moon and Empty Arms. That is the big tune in the finale of the second piano concerto, one of the greatest melodies ever written. Even though that finale, it has to be said, is based transparently in what it does on the finale of Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto, which has a similar tune. Remember the Tchaikovsky when it goes ya da da da, ya da 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 da, and then the whole thing works out to a big piano cadenza, which stops dead, and then everyone comes crashing in with the big tune. That's exactly what Rachmaninoff does, and it's obviously based on Tchaikovsky, but the first guy who did that was Dvorak in the finale of his Fourth Symphony, which is actually kind of fascinating if you listen to it, because it does exactly what these big Russian finales do, only in a more perky kind of Czech and less hot and heavy kind of way. But it has a glorious, glorious lyrical tune at the end, which I also suggest you listen to. It's beautiful. So that's how that works. And I'm going to play, let's see, that was St. Louis. This is the Naxos recording with Bernd Glemser and the Polish National Radio Symphony Orchestra with Antoni Witt. Moderate tempos, but like most of the things Witt does, and Glemser too. It's a beautiful performance. It really is. So here, and I'm playing these all the way to the end of the concerto because you got to hear how he wraps it up. Just as fabulous as getting into a great tune is how a composer gets out of it again. That's also a function of genius as a composer. It's the context and how the music responds to the presence of the tune. Here you go. Actually never heard the pop music version of this one, Full Moon and Empty Arms. It was, I think, a 1940s, sort of Tin Pan Alley favorite. And I've never had any desire to hear it because I think it's silly. But, that's how these pop tunes happened. They came from the classics. And one of the reasons that these classics became classics is because these tunes were so great and they were reused. Anyway, here is my choice for the most beautiful melody of the world by Rachmaninoff. And it's not of course, this is me. I can't do the one everybody else loves. I just have to be different. But no, I think this tune has something very special about it. It's the lyrical theme in the first movement of the symphonic dances, Rachmaninoff's very last major work. And I think this tune it's not passionate like we just heard in the Second Symphony, not at all. And it's not, one of those just lyrical, effulgent things like we heard in the Second Symphony, as opposed to the Second Piano Concerto. Did I get those mixed up? Anyway, it's not one of those gushing romantic tunes like those other two are. This is wistful. This has an innocence. It has a nostalgia about it, a sadness. It's more like the Vocalese, actually. It's very lyrical. It's very song-like. And I just think this tune is amazing. When it's first performed, when it's first played in the movement, it's played by a solo saxophone, which is the only time Rachmaninoff used that instrument, I think. And it's really hauntingly beautiful on the saxophone. But here I'm playing you the entire theme because he doesn't present it all at once. That was something else he sort of learned in his later life, which is not to let it all hang out at the very start, as in the Second Symphony, but rather to present it to you in tantalizing fragments with pauses between them, and then finally assemble all the pieces in one aching, overarching, glorious melody. And here it is with Enrique Batiz on Naxos and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. Just an unbelievably beautiful tune. And like that one in the Second Symphony, you only hear it once in its complete form. Never again. Never again in the work, never again in the movement. And when it's over, you just, it's a dream that can never be recovered. And that gives it an extra element of poignancy. It's just fabulous the way Rachmaninoff does this. Here it is. My nomination for Rachmaninoff's Most Beautiful Melody. And I know, John, it probably wasn't yours, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed hearing it. Go listen to the symphonic dances if you haven't heard that. If you're a Rachmaninoff person and you like the Second Symphony and you love the piano concertos, get the symphonic dances. It's such a glorious piece of music. Fabulous and full of great Rachmaninoff-y tunes. I'd like to do a whole talk on the second movement, the waltz, which is just one of the slitheriest, spookiest, most beautifully decadent pieces anybody ever wrote. God, it's marvelous. So, there you have it. 3 of the most beautiful melodies in the world by a composer who probably wrote half a dozen of the most beautiful melodies in the world, if not more. Thank you, John, for bringing this up and for reminding me, and I hope I'm reminding all of you, that there's a reason these people are so great. That just because it's popular, that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve the attention and acclaim that it has received. Rachmaninoff certainly does. Fantastic music. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me. Take care.